created bridges where walls once stood. Whether translating sorrow or celebrating joy, he reminds us that poetry is a language where we all belong, even if we are still learning the words.
This poem is for Natasha Narwal, who has now spent more than 300 days in prison only for raising her voice against a discriminatory law. An evening walk while a friend is in prison. The small countries of a dog's paw prints, the liquid yellow of the laburnum, the last round of the river-bound bus. All this ordinariness belongs to you. Reading and writing are just like two sides of the same coin. They have to go along.
For you, did it start from getting getting like much more introduction to the literature, and then you started writing, or you started writing and then you started reading more?
If you exist in all the languages, then you might as well, your writerly persona and your writerly activity should also reflect all your persona. Yeah. The gift of the South Asian classroom is that any given person, everyone is at least trilingual.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, Akhil Katyal, sir, for joining us today. We'll start up with the question straight. So one of the questions that I, as a writer, I'm also a poet, that I face is balancing academia with creative writing. So there are poets like T.S. Eliot, Sylvia Plath, whose writings are based on literature. So how do you think, like, for a starting writer, is literature very important? Like, how do you write? Like, you write from literature and then go, or it's just your thoughts that make, and your thoughts that provoke it?
I mean, over the years I've found that to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to write persuasive poetry, you have to read strong, persuasive poetry. So I think that there is and must be a balance that has constantly to be struck between one's experience and reading other people, which helps you sharpen that experience. I don't think there is any way around it. Even those who might think that they're writing only from their thoughts, it's very possible that they have heard a chance snippet somewhere, they've heard a couplet somewhere else, they grew up with some stories that were told to them in families. They see cinema, which is after all screenplay adapted to the screen. So we are constantly surrounded by text. We might as well be very consciously surrounded by text as well. So no, I think reading and writing are just like two sides of the same coin. They have to go along. I think sometimes when we say, oh, if I read, I know that some students, for instance, and because I used to teach in a creative writing program as well.
So then you'll get it.
So some students used to say, but if I read other works, then my own thoughts will be corrupted. Yeah. But no, your thoughts are never corrupted. Your thoughts are only enhanced, sharpened, nuanced, channelized, funneled. That's what happens to it. And over the years, like, people have admired other people. So let's say if I like Seamus Heaney, he speaks very evocatively about his own teachers, which helped him come to his craft of poetry. Or if I speak about Aga Shahid Ali, he speaks about the poets that he admires, both in the American and the South Asian landscape. So yeah, you have to read to write.
Yeah.
There is just no other way.
Yeah. So for you, did it start from getting like much more introduction to the literature, and then you started writing, or you started writing and then you started reading more?
So I had a very good fortune of performing very badly in my 11th and 12th exams. My parents had forced me into PCM. Thankfully I did badly, except in one subject, which was English literature. So they thought, okay, maybe there's something that he wants to do, and there was a lovely career counselor called Aisha Abraham who saved my life and sent me to Delhi University to take admission into a course which I thought till then in my life that, oh, this was just a hobby. You read as a hobby, you don't work in it. But then I got to do it, and every classroom was a discovery, every session was a revelation, everything that came out of the teacher's mouth and my peers' mouths were a joy. So that's when I really started sort of consciously and in some perhaps in-depth manner started reading. So I think foundations for being a writer were laid over there. And then, I think both a serendipity but also very good teachers which take you under their wing. And one of my teachers was Lalita Subbu. She used to teach me in Hindu College at Delhi University. And she was one of those teachers who used to color your drafts red, who used to have long coffee sessions with you, comment on your work. And she took you so seriously that you began to take yourself seriously. So I think that's what, so I think it was a combination of both a very well designed syllabus in a BA Honours English program with a good teacher, and I think that combination just sparked something in you. But in school also we were constantly surrounded by, I mean, ICSE had a decent syllabus in terms of both Hindi and English writing, which are my languages. So I remember reading बुंदेले हर बोलो से हमने सुनी कहानी थी खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी, and whatever you think of the poem, but the rhythm was very infectious. Or there was a Kedarnath Agarwal poem called Basanti Hawa, which went like हवा हूँ बसंती हवा हूँ सुनो बात मेरी अनोखी हवा हूँ बड़ी बावली हूँ बड़ी मस्त मौला, and it goes on in that way. And so it's almost as if the words were like the hawa, the basanti hawa which it was describing. So I think you were just surrounded by good literature, and surrounded by that, to be in the sohbat of good literature, then you end up producing, at least wanting to produce some yourself.
So in continuation to that, your poem, The First Time I Hit Someone, you wrote for Vogue. So what exactly, like, there are so many rights that we are still not discussing, like marriage rights, adoption rights. So how do you manage to approach writing about these subjects in the contemporary Indian society? And like, your poetry delves into these themes of queerness and identity. What exactly, like, how do you make sure that it goes beyond the language and it reaches everyone?
So, well, you know, the thing is, I think it starts with primarily trying to write honestly and with some conscious crafting vis-a-vis a host of experiences and things that you find worth writing about. It could be the kind of world that you want to live in. It could be for a more healthier relationship with your parents. It could be trying to reckon with your past, and as you grew up as a child, what are the experiences which haunt you or which give you joy. So the poem that you were speaking about, The First Time I Hit Someone, relied on an experience when there was some amount of physical violence between me and a very close friend of mine. And I was just trying to account what was it about these queer individuals who, instead of learning that there were these ideals of certain kind of masculinity being imposed on them from outside, instead of scrutinizing those, instead of questioning those, they turned on each other.
Yeah.
And that's what I found such a pitiful thing about that moment, which in retrospect, of course, one can look back and hopefully set the record straight. And I think it was also a way of, yet again, I think I apologized in some form or the other to that person, but I think I'm not in touch with them. But ages later, I think it was another way of tenting another apology. So the idea is not, I think the idea is to find a language to be honest about the experience without shortchanging any of its detail or nuance or rigor. And if you do that, it will find some people. And each poem will create its own audience. Some will create a smaller, some will create a big audience, some will create audience within particular languages and within particular regions. Others will travel far more widely. Every different poems have different destinies.
Yeah. Talking about language, like I was talking to you about how I write in Hindi, English and Urdu. So how, as a writer, me and everyone else can make sure that even if we are writing in a same language, in one language, that our poetry doesn't get restrained to that language and it reaches a lot of masses? How do we make sure that?
I think the point is to constantly keep experimenting between languages and not hold yourself hostage to some idea that as if you are a Hindi writer or an English writer or an Urdu writer or a Punjabi writer. The point is that if you exist in all the languages, then you might as well, your writerly persona and your writerly activity should also reflect all your personas.
Yeah.
So, and what I really enjoy sometimes is also consciously multilingual writing.
Okay.
You know, so if Akbar Alabadi is writing in a 1911 poem about the Delhi Darbar, he's writing, one of the lines is, or ball mein nache lady Curzon. And he's talking about the British celebrating this moment of the capital of India being moved from Calcutta to Delhi. And he's using the English word ball, the dance, ball mein nache lady Curzon, and he's talking about a particular historical personality. And I'm saying, if canonical Urdu writers are not sticking to a script of what language they should be writing in, then what's stopping any one of us from doing that? And this is not just happening in the contemporary time, this was happening in the early 20th century. So I think South Asia, as several writers and scholars have now attested to, is a deeply, deeply multilingual society.
So that, yeah.
And we are always at the interstices of languages rather than operate in any one of them. You know, I've interacted with students from different parts of the world, particularly the US and the UK, but I've taught here. So the gift of the South Asian classroom is that any given person, everyone is at least trilingual,
Yeah.
if not more. Whereas sometimes in the US and UK, you used to speak to a classroom, and mostly, not everyone, but mostly people knew one language,
Yeah.
and that was the language we are speaking in right
Yeah.
now. So I think that joy is to be built upon, and then multilinguality has to enter into our works rather than be kept outside of it.
Yeah, so I think I will also definitely try being multilingual and writing it in my poetry and my other works as well. So I think it was a great discussion that we had today, and I'd like to end it here on a very good note, and hopefully you enjoyed ALF and you'll enjoy the next session also.
I had a great time. Thank you so much. Thank you for
That's
the
it.
conversation.
Yeah.